One morning you opened your eyes. You are 13,000 years in the past. In Sudan, on the eastern bank of the Nile, the water level is dropping. Not in a short time, but over years. The place where you swam with your friends as a child is now nothing but dry earth. You turn your eyes to the opposite bank. There is a group there too. They are also looking at the river, and at the same time, they are looking at you. What this group is watching is the same, the ever-shrinking water. For a while, you look at each other in silence, motionless. And then you see a group from the opposite bank beginning to move. They are not walking, they are running fast. Spears are in the air, and they are coming while shouting, leaving dust behind them. There is not much time left before you become the target of the first arrow. As the sun approaches setting, dozens of lifeless human bodies are left lying on that shore. This is not a fantasy. This is not a myth. This happened. History researchers call this site Jebel Sahaba, excavated in the 1960s by an archaeologist named Fred Wendorf. Those who lost their lives at Jebel Sahaba left their bones behind in this area. From this excavation, we have 61 skeletons. Men, women, children. Nearly all of them show signs of violent death. Stone arrowheads embedded between vertebrae. Skulls collapsed from the impact of a single blow. Most of their wounds had already healed before these people lost their lives. This means they survived. They escaped a first attack alive, and then they were attacked again. There is a skeleton here belonging to a woman. She had survived injuries in 4 separate locations, all of which had healed, surviving all 4. In the 5th, she lost her life. Jebel Sahaba may be the oldest confirmed site of mass killing in human history, and it raises once again a question that has continued to be debated for decades. Why did this happen? For much of the 20th century, the answer to this question seemed clear. Cave people, clubs, and ongoing struggle for land, shelter, and mates. Violence was ever present and there, hidden within humanity, waiting only for a reason to emerge. Then archaeologists decided to count the bones. Anthropologists Jonathan Haas and Matthew Piscitelli examined more than 2,900 skeletons from the pre-agricultural period, sites across multiple continents spanning hundreds of thousands of years. The rate of violent death was low, not zero, but low, very low. There were individual fights, there were animal attacks, there were accidents, but organized group attacks between groups? Almost none. For approximately 290,000 years, there is almost no evidence anywhere on Earth of planned group attacks among humans. 290,000 years, and then the Ice Age changed everything. 13,000 years ago at Jebel Sahaba, this difference was already visible, and then it repeated across different regions over thousands of years. In what is now Austria, around 5000 BC, a farming settlement called Asbarn-Schleitz was wiped out entirely. The lifeless bodies were left where they fell. No one buried them. In a place called Talheim in Germany, researchers found a pit containing 34 people, men, women, children. Their skulls had been crushed from behind as they tried to flee. In South Dakota, at Crow Creek, around the year 1325, approximately 500 people were killed in a single attack. The bodies were savagely beaten, torn apart, thrown into a mass grave. These were all part of the same problem. Separated by thousands of kilometers and thousands of years, different continents, different centuries, but the same pattern, again and again. Violence doesn't appear when humans first set foot on the earth. It comes later, and once it happens, it gets worse. Why? For most of the Paleolithic, groups of humans that came together were small and the land was vast. If a food source ran low, you could move somewhere else. War was a last resort, and it was costly. You could lose someone from the group, someone you'd never see again. Because of this, Staying on the move was almost always the more sensible choice. But two things changed at the same time. Toward the end of the Ice Age, the climate became unpredictable. Entire ecosystems collapsed. The large animals that had been hunted for thousands of years began going extinct. While this was happening, the human population was also growing. As a result of this growth, instead of wandering in groups toward the most desirable spots, rivers, coastlines, people now decided to settle. Once you decide to settle, when conditions get hard, you can't simply walk out. You have a shelter. You have stored food. You have something to lose. And that was the moment the rate of violence changed completely. Launching an attack against another community is no longer dangerous. It becomes profitable. That group stored grain, their fishing spots, a desirable stretch of the river. All of it becomes worth attacking for, worth dying for. Archaeologists call this the resource competition hypothesis. And Jebel Sahaba fits this picture almost perfectly. A river valley, a deteriorating climate, a community with nowhere to go. A group of people subjected to attack again and again. The agricultural revolution made this dynamic even more dysfunctional. A nomadic group can no longer stockpile much of anything. You have to carry most things on your back. But when you plant a field and fill a grain store, you create something that never existed before. Something that can be taken, something worth pillaging, something worth dying for. Just this shift alone, a surplus that no one else had. This single change, a surplus that others didn't possess, was most likely what turned sporadic violence into organized warfare. For 290,000 years, almost no trace of organized human violence had been found anywhere in the world. Then, the climate began to change. Populations grew, and individuals who had previously migrated began to settle into sedentary life. From the moment people had homes and harvests to lose, taking them from others was no longer unthinkable. For the first time, the value of taking risks emerged. A woman in Jebel Sahaba was living this life. She had a fever. She was surrounded by people. She managed to survive 3 separate attacks on her community, then survived a 4th and continued her life. She had chosen none of it. Her people were hunters and gatherers in a world that was no longer generous, and someone decided that even the remnants in their hands were worth taking by force. This is how the first known war in human history appears to have begun. Not with a declaration, not with an ideology, not with a flag or a cause. With a river, a famine, and the oldest calculation humanity has ever made. It was easier to take than to share. This calculation did not remain unique to the Stone Age. It kept finding new excuses. In 1462, Vlad III, the ruler of Wallachia, known in history books as Vlad the Impaler, applied this logic against the Ottoman army. Chroniclers of the time write that Ottoman soldiers, as they approached the city of Târgoviște, encountered a field of thousands of impaled corpses. It was a deliberate and terrifying message about the cost of invading his lands. Historians still debate the exact numbers, but they do not question the strategy. It was fear, used to protect his lands and resources against those who sought to take them. 13,000 years separate Jebel Sahaba from that field. The calculation had barely changed. And so we come to the question, when did war begin? Not when humans first appeared. Not because existential violence was always hidden within us. It began when we chose not to be generous enough to share our world, and when someone found taking to be less troublesome than asking. We still live on a planet where resources are consumed without measure, where borders are drawn, where some still decide that the other side has something worth taking. The weapons have changed entirely. The reason behind them never has. This is the oldest story we tell in human history, and we are still writing it.